Video showing an alligator in Tennessee has gone viral. TWRA says a worker shot this video of a 7-foot gator in Fayette County. That's just east of Memphis. It's been shared more than 10,000 times.
And as reporter Grant Robinson reports, gators are just the most recent non-native animal to find their way to Tennessee. Grant?
Armadillos, a western subspecies of cougars, and now alligators are all calling Tennessee home. Yet wildlife leaders say it could be decades before any of those populations become common in East Tennessee.
They can make it in colder water than people realize, and obviously we're seeing that right now in West Tennessee.
A 7-foot alligator sprawled out on the Wolf River in West Tennessee has taken the internet by storm. But for wildlife leaders, the explanation is simple.
We've seen manatees as far north as Memphis, and there's been bull sharks documented all the way up into Illinois. So a lot of things go up and down that Mississippi River, and it's not too surprising to see alligators.
TWRA says some gators are naturally migrating as their population grows and habitat shrinks in neighboring states. And alligators aren't the only animals making a move. According to TWRA, armadillos have only reached Tennessee within the last 30 years. They're well established in the western part of the state, but only recently reached as far as Chattanooga and the Cumberland Plateau.
To have them right here in the mountains, where we're standing right now, is probably unlikely, but the ridge and valley, we could probably expect some armadillos there at some point.
And then there are cougars, also called mountain lions. The eastern subspecies is native to Tennessee, but the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service declared it extinct. However, since 2015, TWRA has confirmed 10 cougar sightings in west and middle Tennessee. That cougar subspecies is considered a cousin of our native cat. DNA testing from one cougar in West Tennessee suggested it migrated from the Black Hills of South Dakota.
Animals are expanding. It's exciting in a lot of ways, but I don't think we'll ever see any of those three in large numbers in East Tennessee.
There have been a few rare cases of cougars and gators closer to East Tennessee, but TWRA leaders say those animals didn't migrate here naturally. Instead, they were trapped somewhere else and released illegally. Guys?